Just before 11 o'clock this morning, 30-year-old Bobby Ray Fields died in a three-car collision.
Timberwolves guard NBA veteran Malik Sealy died as a result of a head-on car collision.
Give me a second, man. Damn.
This was bigger than basketball, bigger than any game or performance that we've ever mentioned. As sports fans, there's nothing more tragic than finding out that a player has passed away. This is something that many of us experienced during the 1999-2000 season. But what made this especially tragic was that the NBA didn't just lose one, but two players. Bobby Fields and Malik Sealy both passed away that season. It put the players, the teams, and the league in a position they had never had before. At first, the NBA was continuing business as usual. They're looking to put the 90s and all the Chicago Bulls' glory behind them and to promote the new era. As we entered the new millennium, it was in a promising position with so many great teams and talent. But everything went to a halt on January 12th. Bobby Fields was in a car accident which occurred less than a mile from the Charlotte Coliseum. He spun out of control and collided with another vehicle moments after he left a morning practice. It was reported that he passed away instantly. He was only 30 years old. Since it happened so close to the stadium, the whole team was on the scene moments after. Paul Silas, the coach of the Hornets, also mentioned to reporters how this affected him personally. He said that it was one of the worst things that he had ever been through in his life. Shortly after the accident, the Hornets met at the facility. "I just remember guys crying," said Steven Silas, who worked as a scout on his father's staff. They lost an incredibly loyal teammate, an extremely underrated player, and just a great human being. He was known for being a menacing defender. In the 1995-96 season, he was selected to be on the All-NBA defensive second team. That was a year when Michael Jordan gave him the ultimate compliment. He called him the toughest defender he had faced. It was a reputation that he worked very hard to earn. He was a second-round draft pick selected by the Milwaukee Bucks in 1991. However, he didn't play a game for them and was waived in December. In the following season, the Cleveland Cavaliers decided to give him a chance late in the year. He was given a 10-day contract. Mike Fratello, the former Cleveland coach, remembered a young, unproven Bobby returning to training camp without a guaranteed contract. He remembers telling him that they would release him if they wanted because he already had 13 of 14 guaranteed deals and his chances of making it were slim. He then said, "I figured we'd give him a shot to catch on with another team." Bobby came back the next day and said, "I want to stay here, coach. I'm just going to keep working." After the Cavaliers were riddled with injuries in 1993, he became a starter and led the team into the playoffs for the next 4 seasons. By the time he signed with the Hornets in the 1997 offseason, he was a highly respected player who was good enough to start for nearly any team. He turned a 10-day contract into a 9-year career, and he made millions of dollars. He was the ultimate success story. He was a family man, a valued member of the community, and the type of player that you would love to have as a teammate. You aren't going to find one negative word about him from his teammates or his competitors. David Stern spoke for everyone when he said that he was one of the most respected members of the NBA. That's what made this particular loss so crushing. The Hornets were scheduled to play the Chicago Bulls that day, and the NBA decided to postpone the game. That was an easy call. The next decision was going to be much more difficult. How much time should the team be given to grieve? Their next game was going to be 2 days after his passing, which was against the New York Knicks. Todd Fuller, one of the few players to speak with reporters, spoke for his team when he said, "It's going to take some time. It's not just one day. You can come back and expect to be on the same wavelength emotionally, mentally, and physically that you were before the accident. You know, Bobby was a special person. It's going to take some time to get over this." End of quote. After many conversations with the league office, they decided to postpone their matchup against New York. This allowed the players to be present for the memorial service that afternoon, and the members of the Knicks were also present. The first matchup after the accident was the next day in Madison Square Garden. A black patch with the white number 13 was placed on the right-hand side of the team's jerseys. As the game started, you could tell they were playing with a heavy heart. They were down 28-13 in the first quarter, and they shot 23% as a team in the period. They ended up losing the game by 12 points. 2 days later, they had their first home game against the Toronto Raptors. This was not going to be a normal night. The evening began with the reading of a letter from Bobby's widow, Kendall, and it continued with a video tribute. They also retired his jersey number. He is still the only Hornets player to have his number retired with the team. With the stadium packed and emotions running high, they knew they couldn't lose this game. In the third quarter, they outscored the Raptors 40-20. They won the game by 21 points. It was a performance that made the city proud. But when something as big as this happens, there's always going to be controversy, especially when a teammate was involved in the fatal crash. The police reported that Bobby and David Wesley were traveling at speeds in excess of 75 miles per hour. Bobby lost control of his car in the 45 miles per hour zone. His car was struck on the driver's side door. David was convicted of reckless driving, but was acquitted of racing with his teammate. At first, everyone thought they were drag racing. This caused some of the media to publish some harsh articles. David Wesley was the face and voice of this incident. Every city the Hornets played in meant Wesley would be asked to recount the tragedy and how the team was coping. Paul Silas recalled that David just didn't want to play. He thought it was his fault that it happened. It was a distraction that wasn't going to allow this team to play at its best. They finished the season with 49 wins, and they lost to the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round. In that series, Paul sensed that his players had nothing left to give. They deserve credit for coming together and playing with a lot of heart. In their final 16 games, they went 14-2, but the playoffs were just too much. Paul Silas mentioned that they couldn't play hard anymore. It was the end of the toughest season any NBA team has had to go through. 25 years later, and the Charlotte Hornets will never forget Bobby Phills. He left a lasting legacy for that organization, the city, and the league. 20 days after the Hornets season ended, the Lakers were getting set to host the Blazers for Game 1 of the conference finals matchup. This was going to be the most entertaining and important series of that postseason. But everyone's mind wasn't on the game, but on what happened earlier that day. The NBA received horrifying news that Malik Sealy had passed away in a car accident. He had just attended the 24th birthday party for Kevin Garnett. According to the Minnesota State Patrol, he was driving his Range Rover on a highway when the driver of a Dodge pickup truck was traveling in the wrong lane. He struck Malik head-on. The person who hit him was driving drunk, and he survived. He went to jail for 4 years after pleading guilty to vehicular manslaughter. Malik tragically lost his life at the age of 30. This was another player who had such a positive impact on his teammates and the league. In college, he is one of the greatest scorers in St. John's basketball history. He had a playground style that made him so entertaining to watch. He was drafted 14th overall by the Indiana Pacers. He was a reserve until he was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers in 1994. After 3 seasons there, he signed as a free agent with the Detroit Pistons in 1997. Then he moved as a free agent to the Timberwolves in January 1999. He was one of the best perimeter defenders, and he was talented enough to take over on offense when needed. But he was much more than just an athlete. Sealy founded his own company that designed ties and clothing. He also tried acting, appearing in the television shows The Sentinel and Diagnosis Murder, and the basketball movie Eddie. But his biggest attribute might have been the way he viewed the game. He was a winner. He knew what he had to do to galvanize his team and bring everyone together. Sam Mitchell, one of the veterans of the team, mentioned that he preached closeness. He said that if we put all the jealousy, all the contract business on the side, we could win. Kevin McHale, the vice president for the Wolves at the time, mentioned that Malik was one of the most popular players in the locker room and one of the biggest reasons behind their turnaround and success in 2000. To give context to his comments, the Wolves were 9-13 before naming him a starter. From that point forward, they were one of the top teams in the league, and they won 50 games. His most famous highlight came when he faced a team that drafted him, the Indiana Pacers. They were down 2 points with only 1 second remaining, and he hit the game-winning three-pointer at the buzzer. But perhaps his greatest contribution was the way he helped Kevin Garnett become one of the greatest players in league history. Garnett once said that Malik had been one of his favorite players while he was playing at St. John's. In 1999, he mentioned how much his game influenced him. He said, "I wasn't the most confident guy at the time, and I was trying to find someone who was another me. Not the best player, but someone who played like me." End of quote. But you know the saying, never meet your heroes, for they are sure to disappoint. That wasn't the case for KG. According to Sam Mitchell, Malik and Kevin were brothers, best friends. He added, Malik brought Kevin out of that shell. He taught Kevin how to be comfortable with being a superstar. This was someone who truly meant a lot to Garnett. You can tell whenever he has the courage to speak about his dear friend and teammate. Here's one time when he had a heartfelt message.
After I went home and I got in the bed and I just sat there and I was like, man, God, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for this night, you know. And I laid down and I'll never forget that. My aunt damn near like kicked my bedroom door in. And I just remember she was telling me, she was like, something happened to Malik, you know, you got to get Malik. Malik's dead. And when she said it, it felt like time had stopped. That's what that was.
Unlike the Charlotte Hornets with Bobby Phills, they didn't have to immediately play without their teammate. They were already eliminated from the playoffs. It wasn't until their home opener against the Sacramento Kings in the following season that they were able to pay tribute to him. They also retired his jersey number, but the greatest tribute came during the game. Kevin Garnett made one of the greatest plays of his career when he threw down this slam. He then put two fingers up in honor of his brother, who wore the number 2. Wolves coach Flip Saunders said Garnett's dunk was the best he had ever seen. As the years went on, Kevin never forgot about his teammate. Whenever he got traded to the Brooklyn Nets in 2013, he decided to wear the number 2. He mentioned to reporters the reasoning behind this decision. It was only right to honor someone that I respected so much, and I have a lot of respect for who he is as a person more than anything. It was only right to pay homage to a dear friend of mine. End of quote. His impact was still being felt. Even today, Wolves fans have not forgotten this great player and human being. For the rest of us, we couldn't believe that these two great people were taken away from us so soon. But what about you all? What was your reaction whenever you heard the news of Bobby and Malik? What was your favorite moment from them? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.